Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. For the next 2 hours straight, I'll be answering fantasy football questions related to Week 11 of the 2023 fantasy football season. Welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, as the week has progressed, we've gotten more and more information regarding a couple players. Of course, Justin Jefferson, I would say about 15-20 minutes ago, was deemed to be out this week. Very unfortunate for those of us who are waiting for him to come back. Obviously, the last 2 weeks when he's been eligible has not been activated. We know that Devon Achane earlier this morning was activated, and there's other injury news that, of course, we're still kind of, waiting on. But majority of the information that has been made public via the overall injury reports is available to us, which is great. We have a lot of context as to who we can potentially expect to play, and in the overall absence of some players, there are going to be upside performances around them. Either way, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome. If you guys are going to send in a question, whether that is via Super Chat or via the chat itself, be sure to include your scoring format. That is extremely essential in terms of making sure that I can answer your question to the best of my ability. Whether it is a standard league, full PPR league, half PPR league, whether it's 6 point per passing touchdown, 4 point per passing touchdown, all that kind of stuff definitely does matter in the long run. Besides answering questions today for the next 2 hours, I'll also be putting together a couple pick'em slips via Underdog Fantasy like I do every Saturday. So if you guys haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy, again, if you guys want my rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, and next week, because there's 3 Thursday Thanksgiving days, I'll also send those rankings then. Again, I send rankings every week, which are by position, by tier, half PPR, full PPR rankings, flex rankings, all of that, so I can help you guys out every single week. All you got to do is sign up using Underdog, using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of $10. Also, tomorrow morning, do not forget, I'll be live streaming for 3 hours starting at 7 a.m. PST. Thank you very much. Okay, let's answer some questions, shall we? From the top, we had Ozzy Reyna. Ozzy, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. All right, so Ozzy's question was the following. Ozzy says, in a full PPR, I have DK. Okay, so let's see here. DK or Debo, Musgrave or Conklin? If we're talking about this week alone, I would go with DK Metcalf over Debo Samuel. Especially with the potential of Tyler Lockett not playing, or even if he does play, he'll be limited. He did not practice on Friday, which is typically that's a huge sign in terms of a player that late in the week had an injury pop up, and if that in fact is going to impact his eligibility to play, DK Metcalf with JSN should be great plays. So I'll take him over Debo in that circumstance. As for Musgrave or Conklin, especially in a full PPR, the higher target opportunity and the wider range of receptions is in the direction of Conklin, who's had himself, 13 targets, 13 receptions in the last 2 games combined, in comparison to Musgrave, who very seldom gets utilization. And when he does, yes, they're big plays, but very difficult to trust in those circumstances. So I'll take Conklin there as your tight end. As for your follow-up question, should I trade Brian Robinson for Kincaid? I wouldn't. I would probably keep Brian Robinson unless you're unless you have a lot of depth at running back. You said you have Pacheco and Pollard as your other backs. Here's my thought process here, Ozzy. So Kincaid is eventually going to have Dawson Knox return. Now, it doesn't mean that Kincaid is going to disappear, but it's definitely going to be a little bit more competitive in terms of targets within the offense, because they'll probably utilize more 12 personnel sets, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, once in fact Dawson Knox is healthy and back into the mix. That being said, yeah, I would like to keep your running back depth, because let's say, for example, you move on from Robinson and something is to happen to either Pacheco or Pollard that would force them to miss a week. When you get down into the nitty gritty must-have wins of the fantasy playoffs, you're going to need another running back there just in case, or potentially a flex option if Brian Robinson continues to perform as well as he has as of late. So if it was for another tight end, I'd consider it as like an automatic, but I don't know if I want to give away RB depth when you only have 3 guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to Nathan Salazar. Nathan, thank you very much for the question. It says full PPR, start 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a singular flex, and 1 quarterback. Okay, cool. So of the available options that you have Puka, Rice, Adams, Gibbs, Achane, Pollard, Aaron Jones, Khalil Herbert, Fields, Sam Howell. Thanks. Okay. So of the available, I would play Fields over Sam Howell. As for your 2 starting wide receivers, I would play Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. As for your 2 starting running backs, at this point, I'd probably go Gibbs alongside of Achane, and in your flex, I'd play Pollard. That's the way I would run it. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. Let's see here. I see Constantino in the chat says, what's up, my boy? Full PPR with Lockett out or potentially out. JSN or Singletary. So I saw this question before I started the live stream, and I thought, okay, Dameon Pierce had a limited practice on Friday. If Dameon Pierce is active, I think it would be an easy way to just pivot in the direction of going JSN, assuming Lockett is out. If he's not, it makes it a little bit of a closer, potential, especially if in fact Dameon Pierce misses. So there's a lot of context to this. If there's no Dameon Pierce and there's no Lockett, I'll take Singletary. If there is one or the other that is impeding these players, then go with the opposite. If both are active, Lockett and and Pierce, I would just roll with Singletary again as well. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Koala in the chat sent in a question, says Tank Dell or DJ Moore. I know Fields is returning. Yeah. So the return of Fields should absolutely amplify the potential of DJ Moore in comparison to where he has been over the course of the last couple weeks. But with that said, I think the target volume, the current conversation of the Houston Texans being one of the more higher powered passing attacks in the National Football League, throwing as much as they have, I think in terms of a per game average, CJ Stroud leads the National Football League in terms of passing yards per game. But due to Noah Brown being out, there's so much more potential for Tank Dell in this circumstance, in my opinion. I know that Justin Fields will be throwing for majority of the day, but until I see what he's capable of coming off of that thumb injury, I'll lean in the direction of Tank Dell there this week. Thank you again, Koala. I appreciate it. Brian French in the chat says, what's up? What's up, Brian? Hope you're doing well. Let's see here. R. Brown in the chat was saying Ingram or Curtis Samuel in a full PPR. That's a good question. I would probably lean towards playing Evan Ingram there. Moving on to Mike G's question. Mike G, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, Darrell Henderson or Calvin Ridley in a full PPR? I need to win this week. That's a really good question. So here's the thing about Darrell Henderson. I don't trust them as much because there's always a potential of Royce Freeman coming in and stealing a touchdown. And considering that has been made like a precedent within this backfield, and there isn't really a commanding lead by Darrell Henderson, it scares me to the point to where I'm like, okay, well, what can I potentially get out of Darrell Henderson? 6 to 10 points, maybe in a full PPR. If he gets a couple receptions here and there, he can definitely save his week, but there's no guarantee that he gets that kind of utilization this week against Seattle. As for Calvin Ridley, I mean, that's as sketchy as it gets on top of it, right? They take on Tennessee. Tennessee's secondary has not played well this season. That's a given. But can we trust it? At this point, if I could guarantee that Darrell Henderson was going to catch a couple passes, I would just blindly select him. But considering I can, I think I play Ridley there. Michael Barton sends in a question. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. It says full PPR, Herbert or Murray? Justin Herbert or Kyler Murray? I'll take Justin Herbert there this week. As for your follow-up, number 2, Chandler with Madison possibly, or Pacheco or Cooper. So my understanding is that Alexander Madison has a very good chance to play considering he had a full participation of practice yesterday. Now that's very rare, especially considering he was in the concussion protocol. He still could end up being an outplay because if you guys remember last week, so if you go back to week 9, okay, hear me out. If you go back to week 9, KJ Osborne sustained a concussion in that game. In week 10, he had cleared concussion protocol, but the coaching staff deemed him to not be active in week 10's game. I don't know whether or not this was a matter of just keeping him safe or what the entire situation was. There could be another precedent set in place by the Minnesota Vikings, coaching staff and or medical team in which, hey, even though you cleared concussion protocol, we're going to give you a week off. There's a possibility of that. Nonetheless, of the available options you have, considering I don't know what to expect at a DTR, or at least I've seen him play earlier this season against the Baltimore Ravens, and it wasn't a pretty product overall. I don't really want to trust Amari Cooper just yet. For now, I'll lean in the direction of Isaiah Pacheco out of the players that you mentioned there, Michael. As for your follow-up question, Keenan Allen or, okay, what does it say? Okay, so the third question is Keenan Allen or Derrick Henry? In a full PPR, it would be Keenan Allen, especially considering he had a full participation of practice yesterday. It would be Keenan Allen. And then moving on to your final question, trade Murray and Brian Robinson for Bijan. Is that a good trade? Assuming Bijan Robinson returns and is getting the workload of opportunity he just most recently had in week 10. That overall opportunity of 22 rushing attempts had himself one of his best games, mainly because they utilized him down in the red zone. This was the first time all year where they featured him in the red zone, especially inside the 10 and 5 yard lines. If they're going to continue to go in that direction, which I am anticipating that they do so, I don't mind the move considering you have a Herbert already who's past his bye week, and Bijan is well preferred over Brian Robinson remainder of the season there. Thank you. Moving on to Luis Alcantar. Thank you, Luis. It says full PPR. I need 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a singular flex. Out of DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, Puka Nacua, Tank Dell, Montgomery, and Barkley, and Ford. Whew. Okay, so you got a lot of studs here. So of the available options you have, I don't want to really play Ford. Ford taking on Pittsburgh and, of course, the backup quarterback. In comparison to the bunch, not the greatest play. I don't love the idea of playing Deontay Johnson, especially if, in fact, we don't have any. Let me go check really quickly in terms of injury reports from the Cleveland Browns. If Denzel Ward is going to play, it's kind of a Denzel Ward full practice Thursday and Friday. I don't really want to touch Deontay Johnson out of the available players you have. So, of more Kirk, Puka, Dell, and Monty and Barkley, this is the way I would go about it. I would go wide receivers, Christian Kirk, Puka Nacua, running backs, Barkley and Montgomery, and between Dell and Moore as your flex, I would take Tank Dell there. So Kirk, Puka, Dell, Montgomery, and Barkley. Thank you very much, Luis. Adam Amar sends in a question. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. Adam's question is the following. I have running backs Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley, Lenny, as in like Leonard Fournette, Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson. My wide receivers are Kupp, Ayuk, Thielen, Demario Douglas. I'm sitting at 7-3. Do I trade Ayuk for Breece Hall and Godwin? Yes. Absolutely. 100%. It's no question at all. I would make that trade in a heartbeat. Absolutely. Bring in Breece Hall, bring in Chris Godwin, especially considering the Jets just released Michael Carter from their running back room. And he was such a huge receiving option within this offense and was definitely digging into the utilization of Breece Hall. I know that the head coach, Robert Saleh, had came out earlier this week in a press conference and said they want to get a little bit more utilization for Dalvin Cook. Even if that's the case, they highly prefer to play Breece Hall over him. So I think Breece Hall gets a little bit more of an uptick of opportunity there. And when you're getting back a guy on top of it like Godwin, who going forward will absolutely have value, I think that's a no-brainer deal there. Thank you. Moving on, we had another question from Adam Amar. Says half PPR, by the way. Yeah, still good to go there. Thanks for the rest of season video. You are here. You're my hero. Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out my rest of season rankings video, I posted that yesterday afternoonish, probably like 5 p.m. my time or 4 or 5 p.m. PST. That overall video has rankings and tiers for my top 36 running backs, top 36 wide receivers, top 16 quarterbacks, and top 17 to 19 tight ends available on screen. And I have rest of season strength of schedule rankings throughout the video, throughout different spectrums of time. That's like week 11 through 17, 11 through 14, and 15 through 17 for all 4 positions. So I put in a lot of work. If you guys haven't checked that out and you want to know, like, Andrew, who would you be trading for prior to the upcoming situations of whether you have a, I guess, deadline today in terms of trade deadline, maybe it's next week, you can check that out. Thank you very much. Be sure to click the like button. And speaking of the like button, for those of you who have joined us this morning, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. If you have not yet already, do me a solid. Help us continue to support the channel and continue to boost the algorithm by clicking the like button down below. It takes 2 seconds out of your day, but I can assure you it's as good as it gets in terms of helping me out. So thank you. I appreciate it. Hector Gonzalez sends in a question. Hector, thank you. Says, flex Hopkins, Marquise Brown, or Henderson. I would 1,000% prefer to play Marquise Hollywood Brown there. I think last week's performance was a fluke. Thank you for the question. Let's see here. Adam Amar had one more question in the chat. Said, I could also do Javonte or Walker instead of Breece. I like Breece Hall over the bunch. If not Breece Hall, I think Javonte Williams also works. Either way. Those are 2 great options in return in that overall scenario in order to reassure your running back position. Even if you were going to get Kenneth Walker, I still think at that point in a half PPR, it's still worth the trade because you're getting back more than you're giving in that scenario. Let's see here. Moving on from Hector's question, we have Jesse. Jesse, thank you very much. Says in a full PPR, I have Christian McCaffrey locked in. Awesome. I need 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I have Jacobs, Monty, Achane, Kirk, Ayuk, and Amari. So you just want to make this difficult on me, huh? So if you need 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, out of the available that you've mentioned, I'd feel most comfortable playing Josh Jacobs alongside of Devon Achane as your 1 running back and your 1 flex. And in your wide receiver position, you need 2 wide receiver positions filled. So yeah, Monty and Achane as RB. Sorry, Jacobs and Achane as RB and flex. 2 wide receivers, I would go with Ayuk and Kirk. Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see here. Will Taylor says, what's up, Andrew? Nothing much. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm just chilling, trying to answer as many fantasy questions as I possibly can and be as accurate as I possibly can despite the the inconsistencies of this world. Some weeks you think, hey, you know what, the coaching staff's going to lean in this direction. When you think they're going to zig, they zag, and that's just life. Will Taylor says, flex Kincaid or over Terry McLaurin. Flex Kincaid over Terry McLaurin. That's a really good question. I'm gonna actually check my rankings from Thursday. Let me check here. Where do I have it? Was a scoring format? Let me see here. Did you mention it? I have Allen as my quarterback and Laporte as my tight end. I had Chase on Thursday looking for upside. Okay, so if we're looking for upside in general, I think it's okay. So let me check one more thing before I just want to ensure that the weather is not a disaster in New York or anything like that, or Washington, wherever they play. So the only disaster weather games are in Kansas City and in Denver this weekend. Everything else is clear skies and ready to go. Okay, good. So that's good to know. Outside of that, let me see here. In a half PPR, if I go Kincaid, what do I have him in comparison to McLaurin? Yeah, I have Kincaid ahead of McLaurin this week. Thank you for your question, Will. Appreciate it. So pretty much just stack him with Josh Allen. All right, Avery Strauss sends in a question. Thank you, Avery. Says, I traded Kenneth Walker and Mostert for Breece Hall. Is that a decent trade? Kenneth Walker and Mostert. It depends, right? So if Mostert goes back to being the secondary running back of this offense, right? To where Devon Achane is the clear leading back, just like he was prior to his injury against the New York Giants many of weeks ago. If we get back to that overall conversation, which Mostert is very much so touchdown dependent because he is not getting enough utilization, whether that's on the ground or through the air. And it's just a matter of like, okay, Mostert's kind of a handcuff at this point. Kenneth Walker has a really tough schedule. Breece Hall, at least going forward, gets more receiving utilization. Maybe that offense turns it around. Maybe they get Aaron Rodgers. I don't mind it. I think in terms of running back depth, as long as you have some, as long as you have two other pieces outside of Breece Hall going forward, I think you'll be fine. Let's see here. Parker A in the chat was saying deciding between Christian Watson versus the Chargers or Ridley. Whew. I mean, that's as tough as it gets, man. That's the battle of mid, because those guys have just been not great this season, to say the least. To say the very least. Daniel Barnes sends in a question, says full PPR, pick 2, wide receiver Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, DJ Moore. I need upside. Out of the bunch, if I'm going for pure upside, I mean, look, here's the thing. In a full PPR, Garrett Wilson's going to catch himself 7-8 catches for 80+ receiving yards. So he's going to score himself 15 points. Does he have the potential of scoring a touchdown? Sure. Is it as likely as potentially Puka Nacua or DJ Moore doing so? I would say no. So under the assumption that we can get very similar, reception and or receiving yard production out of Puka Nacua and DJ Moore, you would lean in their direction because we do expect them to have more touchdown upside, which in the entire grand scheme of things would be the higher upside plays that you're looking for. Otherwise, just plain out, if I'm just starting 2 of these guys going into this week, under the assumption like I'm just trying to start the best overall lineup in my mind, I'm leaning towards playing Puka Nacua and Garrett Wilson there. Thank you for your question, though. Appreciate it. We're moving on to Justin. Justin had a question. Says, I just lost Burrow, so I'm trading Jaden Reed for Fields. Yay or nay? 1,000% yay. 100%. Get it done. Let's see here. AJ Wright says Montgomery and Gabe Davis for JJ. Under the assumption to where you can survive by losing a running back of that caliber, and it's not going to hurt you, this week, and you don't need to win this week because JJ is not playing. I'm very comfortable making that deal there, AJ. AV Strauss had a follow-up question. Says, I would totally take Bijan for Tank. Okay, maybe he's talking to somebody else. I think you're talking to somebody else. Never mind. Moving on. We had Brandon's 12-16 question. He says, full PPR trade Olave / Najee Harris for Pollard and Marquise Hollywood Brown. I would think that's more of a lateral move. I wouldn't 100% say that's like a... Okay, so here's my assumption. I would like to assume that Tony Pollard, based on all the film that I've watched on him, and I've watched literally every single red zone opportunity that he has had over the course of the last 7 weeks, most recently. Every single time Tony Pollard is in the end zone, somebody else messes it up for him. Whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's Dak, whether it's even play calling, very seldom is it a matter of, oh, Tony Pollard couldn't make someone miss, or Tony Pollard didn't pick the right gap. It's just a matter of the entire scenario being very unlucky as of late. But that being said, I would think this is a lateral move because I do prefer Olave over Marquise Brown by a considerable margin. I think Najee Harris, if he continues, to play as well as he has, and he continues to find the end zone at the capacity that he has, I think he could very easily be just as valuable as Pollard going forward. So I think this is a lateral move. If you do prefer Pollard and Marquise Hollywood Brown, that's fine. I think going forward, I would assume Pollard is going to be better than Najee. I'd assume that Olave is better than Marquise, but overall, it's an even trade across the board there, Brandon. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I mean, I know someone earlier had mentioned that they lost, Joe Burrow. I had a league in which I lost. This was a singular team in which I had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Mark Andrews. I'm still pretty solid in the playoffs. Like, I don't think there's any way that I missed the playoffs, but I think recovering from that is going to be devastating. Like, I have Taysom Hill on my bench. I have to go find another quarterback to replace Joe Burrow with for the next, 5-6 weeks here, in order to try to just ensure that I make the playoffs and there's not like a 5-game slide in which, even though my team is 7-3, I get booted out because only 6 of 12 make the play. You know what I mean? Like, tough week, guys. Tough week to say the very least. Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's fantasy football. Moving on. Joel Garza sends in a question. Says, Andrew, Dobbs or Fields in a full PPR? I would probably lean towards the idea of, oh man, this is tough. So I would like to assume that Justin Fields is the better version of Josh Dobbs. I'd like to assume that to be the case. As of right now, who's playing better? I mean, I think it's probably, if you're in like a must-win scenario and you're just trying to play, I would assume that the safest option, considering you have two of these players, is to play Dobbs, because we know he's been able to do it consistently in the last 3 weeks and been fantasy relevant in all 3 of those games. In comparison to Fields, who is still coming back from his injury, and we still need to kind of understand what his capabilities are off of the thumb injury. So for right now, I would probably suggest going with Dobbs just to be safe and just to ensure that you get a quality quarterback this week instead of one that may not be up to the standard that we need him to be at, just in case. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Okay, so there's a couple questions that were sent in. I'm going to catch up on the super chats, but I just want to catch up on some of these live chat questions. Blue Helmet says, play Montgomery for his revenge game over Puka in the flex. Appreciate it. At this point, if you're playing in a half PPR, I could consider it. It is definitely a revenge game. The only issue that I have with the overall situation of playing Montgomery versus the Bears, despite how enticing it is to play him against his former team within the same division, that run stop defense has been they've been as good as a run stop defense has been throughout a period of time that I can remember for fantasy purposes since I've started making videos. Like, it is really remarkable how great that run stop defense is out of just pretty much nowhere. Like, since week 5, they have allowed 88 rushing attempts for 209 rushing yards. That's a 2.38 yard per carry average. Since week 5, they are only allowing 3.48 fantasy points per game off of rushing statistics. 3.48 per game. It is ridiculous what we have seen out of this team. So for right now, especially if it's a full, I'd lean towards Puka. Let's see here. Pete Moss sent in a question. Pete, thank you very much. Pete says, full PPR, Kittle or Ridley? Yeah, it's going to be Kittle. I think you just kind of have to play him. Kittle's been playing, pretty great as of late. The offense is, obviously buzzsawing through defenses, and when they take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, we have seen a lot of tight ends as of late find themselves a lot of success in the matchup. So I would assume that George Kittle could be the next one in line to have a big week against that, linebacking core / safeties. Thank you very much for your question, Pete. We had Corey Miller. Thank you very much, Corey. I greatly appreciate it. Corey says, start one in a full PPR. Rondale Moore, Zay Jones, Miles Sanders, or Jerry Jeudy. Out of those 4 options, I would suggest playing Rondale Moore. Moving on from that question, follow up PPR. Which RBs, wide receivers, and flex do I play out of the following? Pollard, Achane, Singletary, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Hollywood Brown. So if, let's say, for example, you're only able to start Corey, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex within those overall players that you mentioned, I would suggest playing Achane and Pollard as your running backs, Evans and Moore as your wide receivers, and I would play Hollywood as your flex in a full PPR scoring format in that capacity. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it. Perrin Willis in the chat was saying, is Quentin Johnston worth stashing in Dynasty? In Dynasty, sure. I mean, look, this season he has not played well. even in the absence of Mike Williams, considering he's a first-round wide receiver selection, he has been extremely underwhelming, which, again, it is what it is. But going forward for dynasty purposes, he was drafted to be the apparent heir to this entire offense. Justin Herbert is just beginning his NFL career, and Quentin Johnson should be his number one wide receiver in future seasons once there is no Mike Williams and there is no Keenan Allen within this offense for sure. So yeah, that's definitely a something you want to do, Perrin. Let's see here. We had John S in the chat says, I just traded Addison for Marquise Hollywood Brown. W or L? I think that's an absolute W. Again, Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to be very valuable going forward. I think even where I had him ranked yesterday in terms of my rest of season half PPR rankings doesn't do him justice. In a full PPR, he is an even better option. So going forward, I think it's an absolute W there, especially with Justin Jefferson to return. I don't think that Joshua Dobbs will be in a position to where he can very easily and sufficiently apply enough, target opportunity to Hockenson, Jefferson, and Addison to make sure that they're all fantasy relevant within a given week, unless they're all scoring touchdowns, which again, it's going to be difficult to do unless they throw the ball 40 plus times per game, like Kirk Cousins was able to do earlier on in the season, which again, I don't expect them to be able to, duplicate that kind of passing opportunity effect in which they're throwing the ball 45 times with Josh Dobbs. I doubt that they get to that position. But yeah, I think that's a great trade there, John. All right, let's see here. Hakima sends in a question, says, I need a flex play, McBride or Brian Robinson Jr.? Under the assumption that there is no Antonio Gibson, because from what I remember when I was putting together the injury report yesterday, let me check once again just to ensure. As of right now, there isn't an indication. Maybe I can get one. Okay, let me look this up. Because when I look at the Washington Commanders official website and their official injury report that they put out every day, there wasn't an update as of Friday and what the current status of Antonio Gibson is. So as of 16 hours ago via NBC Sports, it says Antonio Gibson is doubtful to play. So under the assumption that we do not have Antonio Gibson playing, assuming this is like a half PPR, considering you didn't mention it, Hakima, I would probably lean towards playing Brian Robinson, especially when we take into account the fact that this backfield and just thinking about Antonio Gibson in the last 3 games, 5+ receptions in each of the last 3 games. On top of the fact that Brian Robinson Jr. last week had 6 receptions. If they're going to continue to utilize their running backs within the receiving game and they feel comfortable utilizing Brian Robinson in that capacity, going into this week, there could be another opportunity for him to catch the ball 5+ times to where even if he does play in a full PPR, half PPR capacity, in comparison to McBride, he is a significantly better player option within the given week. Okay, so we took care of John S.'s question. We move on to Waleed. Waleed, thank you very much. Says full PPR. I'm not sure who to start in the flex. Not sure who to start or flex in running back or wide receiver. LOL. We got Barkley, Montgomery, Singletary, Jay Williams, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, and Lockett. Okay, so as for your running backs, Barkley and Montgomery should be the 1-2. As for your flex, I'm probably leaning towards the idea of playing Javonte Williams there and then starting Devonta Smith and Garrett Wilson as your wide receivers. Yeah, that's probably the direction that I'm leaning towards. Because Lockett, again, I'm not even 100% certain if he's going to play. Singletary, again, I think there's a chance that Dameon Pierce plays. So in this overall capacity, Barkley, Montgomery, Javonte, Devonta Smith, and Garrett Wilson. Thank you, Waleed. Tommy Vu says, in a full PPR, please choose one for the flex. We have Tank Dell, Lockett, or James Conner. In a full PPR, I'll Tank Dell there. Thank you very much. Again, with the absence of Noah Brown this week, there should be a lot of opportunity once again going in the direction of Tank Dell, who's playing against the Arizona Cardinals defense, which again, as we all know, over the course of this season, at times they've played well, but ultimately they are not one of the better defenses in the league, and I do expect Tank Dell to have himself a pretty solid game here for fantasy purposes. Ace in the chat was saying Kyler or Allen. That's a good question. Do you trust Josh Allen versus the Jets? That's pretty much that's pretty much what you have to answer yourself. Can you trust Josh Allen versus the Jets? Because at this point, to a capacity, like if Josh Allen's on my team, I blindly start him every week. But considering you have Kyler there, I could understand questioning the decision. But I would probably still play Josh Allen there. Sean in the chat was saying DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, or Tank Dell. If I was going to rank them just one at a time, in terms of my preference for this week, I would go in the order of first and foremost, give me DK Metcalf, then give me Tank Dell, then DK Metcalf, then DJ Moore. Okay, thank you. Guys, I have Tank Dell very highly ranked this week, and especially with Noah Brown out, it just continues to make him a solidified play. So don't really question or don't really worry about playing Tank Dell. It should never be like a question in your mind. I guess you may have another alternative option that is just as good potentially, and that makes you a little bit wary, but he's a solid play. Let's see here. AC sent in a question. AC, thank you. Says, I lost Mark Andrews. Drop Madison for Freiermuth or Conklin. Assuming that Madison is not one of your starting running backs and isn't in your rotation and isn't someone that you've relied upon this season, I would probably suggest making a move. If you're going to make a move for a player that you can find immediate success with, I would assume that's someone like Tyler Conklin. I don't know how much upside we can find from Freiermuth. If you go ahead and just look at the overall utilization of Kenny Pickett within this offense, right? I don't think Kenny Pickett, let me actually find this real quick. You know how like every week, guys, I show you guys next gen stats on like the running back rushing attempts and the wide receiver routes, the quarterback passing attempts. When I look at the charts for some of these quarterbacks that I don't suggest, you guys play, there's a reason I don't suggest you guys play them, and it's primarily because they're just not playing well, and or in the case of, let me see if I can find Kenny Pickett's. I did find Kenny Pickett. Let me just, if I can, I'm gonna save this and I'm just gonna import it onto the screen. I just want to give you a reference as to what the heck Kenny Pickett's been doing as of late, just so we're all on the same page here, okay? If I go add image, okay, browse desktop, give me this one. Okay, you guys see this? This was Kenny Pickett last week. Kenny Pickett did not complete a single pass over the middle of the field. Now, I don't know if that's a matter of the absence of Pat Freiermuth, or if it's a matter to where they don't trust him throwing the ball over the middle of the field because they think he's going to throw a pick. So everything that he is doing is pretty much either a check down or throwing towards the sideline. That is pretty worrisome. So if I'm going to rely upon a singular tight end right now for this week, I'd rather just have Conklin on my team. So just so we have the reference there. Appreciate it. Okay, while we're here at a little bit of an intermission of answering a question, a reminder for those of you who have not yet already who are joining us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Please be sure to click the like button down below. It's greatly appreciated. Like I mentioned earlier, besides answering questions for the next hour and a half of the live stream, I'll also be putting together a couple pick'em slips via Underdog Fantasy. Do not forget, if you guys want to get my rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, and I guess next Thursday I'll also be sending those rankings out because of course we'll be doing a live stream next Thursday morning prior to the Thursday bonanza of games on Thanksgiving. You can go ahead, travel on over to Underdog Fantasy, link down in the description, sign up, use code Andrew, make that first time deposit, minimum of $10. You'll be able to get yourself a deposit match up to 100. So if you deposit 10, you'll get 10. You deposit 100, you get 100. But you'll get my rankings every single Sunday morning from my email directly to yours. These are by position, by tier, half PPR, full PPR, flex rankings, all encompassing rankings for that individual week. Be sure to check out the map to the bottom of the left side of the screen to determine your eligibility, of course, based on your location. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys. Okay, so let's see here. After AC's question, we have Orlando. Orlando, thank you very much. Says, in a full PPR, my A.J. Brown for Bijan Robinson and DJ Moore. I have JJ and Adams and ETN and Achan and Stevenson. Holy moly. Also start Murray or Fields. Okay, so hold up. Let's talk about this question first and foremost. We're going to trade away A.J. Brown, who in a full PPR, has been averaging like 24 points per game. But you're going to get back in exchange Bijan Robinson and DJ Moore. You already have JJ. You already have Adams. In terms of fantasy upside, here's the thing. In terms of my preferences, I do prefer Achan and ETN over Bijan ROS, so rest of season. That being said, under the assumption that you would be starting like a JJ, Adams, ETN, Achan, Bijan. Okay, let's say, so here's the thing. If you were able to start 3 wide receivers in this league, Orlando, I would say 100% do it. But unless you're pretty much starting DJ Moore in any of these capacities, which I don't think you end up, I don't think you would. You wouldn't start him over JJ or Adams. But if you got into a position in which you did, sure. But considering you won't be, if it's not a 3 wide receiver league, I think I'd rather just keep what you have. Because if it's just a matter of A.J. Brown or Bijan Robinson rest of season full PPR, who's going to be the guy that's inserted into the lineup? Because we prefer Achan, we prefer ETN, we prefer JJ, we prefer Adams, and they've all been past their bye weeks and we won't have to exchange anything there. I'd rather just have AJ Brown on my team in a full PPR over Bijan. But if you have an ability to start a third wide receiver, and if you're picking up DJ Moore, you're starting him alongside of JJ and Adams, and you can still play Etienne, Achane, and Bijan in the flex, then at that point I would be okay with it. Thank you, Orlando. Terry R says, add JSN, Dowdle, Musgrave. Okay, so add JSN, Dowdle, question mark. I don't even know if Dowdle's playing this week. I think he's questionable. Let me check his practice report just to ensure my suspicions, because from what I saw earlier today, my assumption is that he may not play. Let's see here. Never mind. He had a full practice. Wait, why is he questionable though? He had a full practice, but he's questionable. Huh. Okay. Of the two, between him and JSN, I'll take JSN. Again, Dowdle has had many of opportunities to score touchdowns in second half of games this season with the Dallas Cowboys. He doesn't do it very often. And I don't want to really bank on the idea of a touchdown because it's a very difficult pretty difficult metric to assume that, he falls in line with. So for right now, I'll go with JSN there, especially if in fact Lockett's going to miss. Follow-up question, Musgrave or Njoku? I'll take Njoku there. And then the last question, kicker, Elliott or Dustin Hopkins. Between those two, the weather in Kansas City on Monday night didn't look great from what I just saw. It said 70% chance of rain. That could change by tomorrow morning. So for right now, I'd probably lean towards playing Dustin Hopkins for the Cleveland Browns. Otherwise, if the weather does change, Elliott would be the suggestion. Thank you. We had a question that came in from Juan Vaca Ramirez. Says, in a flex full PPR, Rashad White, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson Jr. in a full PPR. Under the assumption that there is no, under the assumption that Antonio Gibson is out, I would play Brian Robinson over the bunch. Follow-up question, should I trade Gus Edwards for Marquise Hollywood Brown? I already have 3 running backs, as I mentioned, and I have Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry. Okay, so in this circumstance, yes, I would be willing to make that trade. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate it. Moving on, we had a question that came in from Anthony. Thank you very much, Anthony. I appreciate it. It says, in a full PPR, I need to start a wide receiver 2 in a flex. Choices are Puka Nacua, Mike Evans, and Tank Dell. Really good question. So I think Tank Dell has to start. And if it's between Puka Nacua and Mike Evans, I could understand the hesitation of playing Mike Evans, especially going up against the San Francisco 49ers. But I think playing Mike Evans is like playing Devontae Adams in the idea to where they're such stud receiving options that even in a bad matchup, you're kind of forced to start them. Because even in a bad matchup, they could still come out with a great performance based on their singular talent. So I'm pretty comfortable going with Mike Evans and Tank Dell there. If you prefer Nacua over Evans, that's fine by me. But yeah, I'll take Evans and Dell. Thank you. Sven Dragon says, Puka or Ford in a 0.25 PPR format. Against Pittsburgh, I'll probably go with 0.25. So under the let me do some math here because that does change the projection overall. Let's see here. It's 0.25. Yeah, let's play Jerome Ford there this week. Thank you for your question, Sven. Appreciate it. Moving on to Jerry Gonzalez. Says, trade Chase and Stevenson for Pollard and DJ Moore. Chase and Stevenson for Pollard and DJ Moore. I think Chase is going to be fine as a solid wide receiver too. I think Stevenson, considering how bad that offense is a little bit less reliable. I don't mind the trade. I think it's a lateral trade, but I think it's a trade that's solid. I don't mind that. Alpha 420 in the chat says, I disagree. Thank you, Alpha. You know what is funny, Alpha? Sometimes you comment that in the comment section, and some people think that you're being like legitimately serious. It's just a meme between you and I love it. I love it. It's just an inside joke. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. Your follow-up question here so actually it's not even a follow-up question. It's just context. You have Justin Herbert, Jerry. You have Etienne, you have Achane, you have Singletary, you have Pittman, you have Collins, you have Davis, you have Odell Beckham, you have Schultz. Yeah, I don't mind it. That's fine by me. I think that Chase will be okay. I think he'll be a solid wide receiver too. But yeah, I could understand if DJ Moore is better than him going forward, especially with Fields returning, and I could understand if Pollard is better than Stevenson. So yeah, that's a fine trade by me. There, Jerry. Thank you. Lucius sends in a question. Says, would you trade Chase for Pittman and Kincaid? Yes, I would. Guys, a reminder. yesterday, I posted a video on the channel. The video in specific was in regards to rest of season rankings. That is correct. Rest of season rankings was posted yesterday on the channel. So for those of you who are looking for the video, I'll just give you a reference. This is the thumbnail. Oh, that's in my face. This is the thumbnail. It was posted yesterday. Check the video out. In the case of your question, when you're asking whether you would trade Chase for Pittman and Kincaid, I have Michael Pittman Jr. higher ranked rest of season than. So that alone, I would rather have Pittman rest of season. Much less if you're able to also getting Kincaid over him, by all means, yes, let's bring that in instantly for sure. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Moving on, we had Skizzy. Skizzy says, full PPR. I need a better wide receiver. My backs are Henry, Hall, Kyron Williams, and Jonathan Taylor. Wow, okay. Would you move any of those backs for a guy like Puka Nacua or Chase? Considering you can't start all of them, I would say that you could make a move of moving Henry and then just keep the rest. Would I love that trade? Not really. I mean, I don't love it. I don't love the idea of trading for Chase right now. I think if you have Chase, I think he's okay to keep, but I don't love the idea of trading for him. So for now, I would probably say I'm okay moving Henry. As for getting Puka in exchange for him, not as excited about it for now. So I'd probably try to look for another potential wide receiver option that has at least a little bit more guaranteed upside. Christopher Plotz says McLaurin has a 18+ fantasy point per game average versus the Giants in his career. Yeah, don't worry. You're telling the guy that is the one that's touting that stat every single time that he takes on the Giants. Don't worry. I'm the guy that's putting in every single underdog bet with Terry McLaurin in it. Don't worry. I know. In a half PPR, it's 15+ fantasy points per game. So yeah, you don't gotta tell me. I know. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from. Where did the question go? I've lost it. Moving on. Okay, so we had Christopher. Christopher Slender says in a half PPR pick 2, Kirk, Brian Robinson, Collins. Thanks. Yeah, in a half PPR, I would rather play Brian Robinson and Christian Kirk there. Thank you. Moving on to Charles Rush says I need one running back and one flex in a full PPR. Do I play Kirk, Rice, Javonte Williams, Mostert, or Singletary? Out of the group there, I would like to play probably either Christian Kirk or Javonte Williams in a full PPR capacity. So if you got it, well, yeah, you can play. You start 2 of them, right? RB and a flex, yeah. Javonte Williams is your RB. Christian Kirk is your flex there. Charles Rush. I already have Jacobs and Dell. Yeah, you're good to go. So Kirk and Javonte there. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. Rockout says one flex, Chandler, JSN, pick up Dotson, Rondell Moore, or Jaden Reed. As of right now, under the assumption that Tyler Lockett does not play, I would like to play JSN there. If, in fact, we are in a scenario in which, of course, the potential of Lockett playing comes to fruition and he does end up playing, I would then suggest probably pivoting over to Dotson or Reed. Thank you. Whichever is still available at that point. Moving on, we had a question that came in from Luis Castillo. It says, thinking of trading away Najee Harris for Nico Collins for Alvin Kamara, full PPR. I'm fine with it. If you have wide receiver running back depth, if you have wide receiver depth to where you can get, that trade to work out rest of the season, I'm fine with that. I think Kamara rest of the season should be a fantastic player. Chris Allin says full PPR, start 1 in the flex, Collins, Ridley, Judy, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Out of those 4 options, I would suggest playing Nico Collins there, Chris. As for your follow-up question, Prescott or Howell, I'd much rather play Prescott. Thank you. Moving on to Official Hone. Says, full PPR, I have Burrow and Stafford. Do I trade David Montgomery for Kyler? I have Pacheco and Achane. So Pacheco or Montgomery for rest of season? Question mark. If it's between Pacheco and Montgomery rest of season, I'd rather have Montgomery. The offense he's associated with gives him far more opportunity within the red zone to get himself utilization. I heard earlier this week on a podcast, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a podcast. So Jahmyr Gibbs was on that podcast, and he had said that on one of the rushing attempts that he had for a touchdown, he was supposed to come out of the game. But David Montgomery asked him, do you want the touchdown? And he said, yeah. And he's like, all right, go in there and get it. And he went in there and got it. So, the team still prefers David Montgomery as their goal line back going forward. And that is obviously not really a surprise considering he is the bruiser back of the offense. Even though that he had, 2 opportunities on the 1 yard line last week and was stuffed in both of those overall scenarios. If I'm picking between the two, I'd rather have Montgomery rest season. Let's see here. Now, if we're making the move to trade away one of these running backs for Kyler instead of just keeping Stafford, I'm okay with that. That's fine by me. I mean, you're already in a pretty rough scenario considering you're losing Burrow, so nothing's really going to be able to replace him fully, but I think this could suffice. Yeah, that works. And then also separately pick 4 HM, Pacheco, Montgomery, Hollywood, McLaurin, Thielen. Woo. In a full PPR scoring format there, official, I'm probably leaning in the direction to where, let me think here. In this full PPR scoring format, I'm probably leaning towards the direction of playing like Achane, McLaurin, Thielen, Hollywood. Probably there. Official, thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to the Ocho. Says, in a half PPR, 2 running backs, 1 flex. Gibbs, Brian Robinson, Ford, Achane. 2 running backs in 1 flex. It would be Achane, Gibbs, and Brian Robinson. Sit forward this week, Ocho. Thank you. Spartan Warrior says, in a 10 team, I'm 7-3. I have Hurts and Stroud. I have Hall and Javonte Stevenson and Kyron. I have Lamb, Puka, Ayuk, Pittman, Brown, Kelsey, McBride. Any trades or sit tight? I mean, there's no reason for you to really have to make any moves. I would say that the only thing that you could potentially do, Spartan, look, so here's the thing. Anytime you move Stroud here, which I'm going to probably suggest you do, there's a potential to where, okay, maybe if Hurts misses a week here, it could end up hurting you. And you want to have that backup, potential quarterback or tight end, with McBride. But I would probably suggest moving Stroud and McBride if you're able to do so alongside of one of these running backs and bringing in a better one or a better wide receiver. Like sending away Stroud and Puka to bring in a top end wide receiver, or moving away from McBride and Javonte to bring in an even better running back. Like you could get away with a lot of moves here because you have so much depth and you have really good quarterbacks and tight ends, which I'm sure people in your league, especially guys who are missing Burrow and Mark Andrews going forward, they would love to have Stroud or McBride. So you could end up making a move there. That would probably be my suggestion. All right, let's see here. Kevin K says, Andrew, truly appreciate all the support you've helped over the last 4 seasons. Quick question. Would you trade Jake Ferguson to get Kyler Murray? I already have Trey McBride. Yeah, as long as you're able to then pick up someone in week 14, because the Arizona Cardinals have a bye week in week 14, you're going to need to pick up a backup for Kyler Murray and Trey McBride. If you have the capabilities of doing so with your roster, I'm fine with making the trade. Absolutely. Let's see here. Just Too Lazy sends in a question. Says, full PPR, Rice or Nico Collins? I'll take Rice there. I'm sorry, I'll take Nico Collins there. Apologies. Let's see here. C. Schuster in the chat said, I need you, Obi-Wan. Justin Herbert or Justin Fields? Wait for it. Standard league. Yeah, standard league's fine. Justin Herbert. 4 points per passing touchdown. I'll still prefer to take him there. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Marvin Lewis sends in a question. Marvin, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. It says, in a standard scoring format, standard league, start 1 wide receiver and 1 flex of the other. Okay, so start 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. Okay, so we have D. Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Darrell Henderson, Khalil Herbert, Royce Freeman, Zach Charbonnet, JSN, or Curtis Samuel. Okay, so if it's standard league, 0 points per reception, we're purely looking for touchdown upside and or yardage upside. Out of the potential players you have, I don't really want to play Herbert, Royce Freeman, or Zach Charbonnet. I don't think that they'll get enough opportunity to justify it. I think Henderson may be similarly in that scenario. I'm probably going to lean in the direction of probably suggesting you go with Brandon Cooks or JSN, assuming that Lockett's out. If Lockett's not out at wide receiver and JSN is going to be flanked by Lockett as well, I'd probably go with Brandon Cooks. And then at that point, let me check something real quick, just so we're all on the same page. I need to check the snap counts of Curtis Samuel last week, just really quickly. Played 51%. It's not great. So yeah, I would probably lean towards the idea of playing JSN, Brandon Cooks. If in fact Tyler Lockett plays, I'd play Brandon Cooks alongside of Darrell Henderson there. Thank you, Marvin. Appreciate it. Moving on to the Ocho. He says half PPR, 1 running back, 1 flex. Achane, Ford, Godwin, Rice. 1 running back, 1 flex. Achane's the running back. And as for the alternative option, I'll probably play Godwin in the flex there. Thank you. Waleed sends in a follow-up question. Says 7-3 first place, 8-man PPR. Hurts and Goff. are my quarterbacks. My running backs are Barkley, Montgomery, Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, and Singletary. My wide receivers are Chase, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, Addison, Lockett. Any trades? So considering you have Barkley, Montgomery, Javonte, and Najee, I guess you don't really have to make any moves at running backs. My primary suggestion would be for this week, play Barkley, get the most that you could possibly get out of him against Washington, then trade him the following week if in fact your trade deadline is available. If not, you could potentially move him now because I just don't love his fantasy playoff schedule. Or you just don't have to move him at all considering you have so many great options that can alternatively play for him. Chase, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson. I don't really think there's much to improve a wide receiver unless you're taking one of these wide receivers and one of those running backs and going after, the upper tier player. Like you could take one of these running backs, take one of these wide receivers and be like, all right, I'm going after, I don't know, let's say, for example, Keenan Allen. But even at that point, like Garrett Wilson's still going to score himself 15 points a week. And there's still a chance like a Najee Harris does that every single week as well. So I wouldn't feel too confident going after a 2-for-1 in that circumstance. So I think you're fine to just keep it as is. You could end up moving one of those quarterbacks, specifically Goff, if someone needs one, the Joe Burrow manager. But outside of that, I don't think you really need to make any moves. You got a solid roster there, Waleed. Mikey says, in a full PPR, Howell or Fields? Yeah, I'm leaning towards just sticking. As the days have progressed here, I'm leaning towards playing the safer quarterbacks rather than Fields, just in case. So for now, I'd probably say let's go with Howell there, just in case. As for your follow-up, Henry, Hendo, HN, Checo, pick 2. Out of those 4 options, I'd rather have Henry and HN this week. Thank you. Someone asked in the chat, Amari Cooper or Darrell Henderson in a full PPR. In a full PPR, I'd be willing to take the risk there and go with Amari Cooper. And it's only a risk because technically it's a backup quarterback in that circumstance. Okay, moving on. We had a question that came in from Reese 2010. Reese said, I need to fill in an RB2 and a flex. Out of these 4, do I play Montgomery, HN, Nico, and Kirk? RB and a flex, assuming it's a half PPR scoring format, I'm very comfortable rolling with both running backs there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. James Newton says Javonte Williams or Jordan Addison full PPR. It's kind of hard not to play Javonte Williams as late, so I'll lean in that direction. Thank you. Moving on from that question, we had one that came in from AC. AC says 2 flex, full PPR, Tank Dell, DJ Moore, or Tank Dell, Brian Robinson Jr., Addison, Ford. Okay, so Tank Dell and DJ Moore, or Tank Dell and one of these other options. I'd be really comfortable rolling with Tank Dell and Brian Robinson Jr. there, assuming we don't get the activation of Antonio Gibson tomorrow. So yeah, I'd lean towards Brian Robinson. Otherwise, you can play DJ Moore. That would be the second best option out of the group. And your follow-up question, Ayuk and Diggs are my wide receivers. Okay, yeah, you're fine there. So yeah, Brian Robinson alongside of Tank Dell for now. Thank you. Brent Shin says, full PPR questions, Goff or Murray. Between those two, who do I have ranked higher? I have Goff as my number 12 this week. I have Murray as my number 14. So Goff would be the play. Moving on from that question, you said, I'm worried that the Lions run a ton. Yeah, look, that's the thing. The Lions are going to try to run a ton. As to whether or not they succeed, that's a question of whether or not the Chicago Bears light it up, because they have been one of the best run-stopping defenses in the last couple weeks. Like, it's really just unbelievable. Like I mentioned earlier, they're only allowing, 2.43 yards per carry on average since week 5. To be specific, like running backs against them in terms of their game logs. So last week, Chuba Hubbard went for 9 carries and 23 yards. The week prior, Alvin Kamara went for 9 carries, 26 yards. The week prior, Austin Eckler went for 15 carries, 29 yards. The week prior to that, Josh Jacobs went for 11 carries, 35 yards. Alexander Madison, 18 carries, 44 yards. Brian Robinson, 6 carries for 10 yards. They have not given up any yardage at all to guys like Jacobs, Eckler, Kamara, and Chuba Hubbard. I 100% do believe that the run blocking efforts of the Detroit Lions are significantly better than these other teams, but I think there's a trend there that I just don't want to mess with. So yes, I would prefer to play Goff under the assumption that they throw the ball a bunch in that game because the running game isn't as efficient as it has normally been for them. As for your second question, Ferguson or Warren in the flex spot, and is Kamara and Warren as my 2, Warren for 2 of the 3, Henry, Javonte, or Kyron Williams, good for rest of season? Thank you, sir. Okay, so Ferguson or Warren this week. Taking on Cleveland in a full PPR. Let me check what the rankings I have here. Let's go flex. Jake Ferguson. So in a full PPR, Jake Ferguson sits there. Let's find where I have Warren. Warren is... I have Jalen Warren ahead of Jake Ferguson this week in a full PPR. As for your follow-up question, is Kamara and Warren for 2 of the 3 Henry, Javonte, Kyren a good for rest of the season? As in a trade? Like if we're trading Warren and Kamara and you're getting back like Kyren Williams and Javonte Williams, is that sustainable? I think that's sustainable. I think that's fine. I think it's more of a... I wouldn't say it's a lateral trade. I think both those guys are definitely better than Kyren Williams, but I don't think they're close to what Kamara is capable of, especially in a full PPR once he starts getting those high reception totals. But yeah, I think if you were to make a move like that, I wouldn't mind it. Even with Henry, I don't mind it because considering they play Houston twice in the last 3 weeks. AJ Wright had a question. Says Montgomery, Olave, or AJ Brown in a half PPR. Sorry, Montgomery and Olave for AJ Brown half PPR. Not knowing the context of your team, I would say it's pretty tough to make that trade unless you're playing in a league in which you have 8 roster spots only. That would be the only time in which I'm feeling like super comfortable about making that kind of a trade. Otherwise, losing depth of that capacity could very much so hurt you, especially in a half PPR, right? Like if you're going to have 15-point performances from like a Montgomery and Olave, and you're going to get like a 21, 22-point performance out of AJ Brown, like you better have alternative depth that's going to be able to carry you, that fills in for the remainder of the season. Otherwise, it's a tough trade to make there. Jonathan Cushman says in a 12-team full PPR, with Hall, Bijan, Kyren, and Dowdle, need a running back for this week. With new injury to Dowdle, Murray is the best to add. Hall, Bijan, Kyren Williams. So considering you don't have Bijan or Kyren Williams, so you have Breece Hall this week, Dowdle was going to be your second running back, and Murray's the next best option to add this week. Yeah, I don't mind the idea of picking up Latavius Murray, playing him against the Jets. He played great last week, and they'll probably run the ball consistently. So yeah, I don't mind that. Sag in the chat was saying, are we supposed to get the Madison news before the day's over? Technically, yes, but worst case scenario, we'll get it at about 3 a.m. Usually when I'm up at around 3 a.m. Sunday mornings, there are a couple like concussion or injury related, like established, like, oh, whether they're in or out, that come out really early in the morning. So I'll know by then. So by tomorrow morning, when we get to our 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time live stream, I'll have the rankings according to that, whether or not Madison's available or potentially out. Let's see here. Pollux, thank you very much, says Godwin or Josh Downs? Godwin or Josh Downs, and rest of season, Kelsey versus Jonathan Taylor. Okay, so assuming they're both rest of season questions, because Josh Downs doesn't play this week, if I was to pick one of the two, Josh Downs or Chris Godwin rest season, I'd probably rather have Chris Godwin. We have to see a full healthy Josh Downs. As of late, he has not been. He's been playing injured. Hopefully the bye week treats him well, but we're going to have to wait and see how it looks after that. Until then, for now, it's Chris Godwin. As for rest of season, Kelsey or Jonathan Taylor, I would only ever give up Kelsey in this scenario if you've got really solid running back depth. And if you're sorry. The only reason I would ever trade for Kelsey is if you have solid running back depth. The only reason I would give away Kelsey is if I have a running or a backup tight end that will be, a solid 10+ point play rest of season. So if you have those two things to where you have a backup tight end and you're willing to move Kelsey to get Taylor and you need running back help, but you have like a Trey McBride or a Dalton Kincaid as your second tight end, that's fine by me. Doesn't bother me. Steve sends in a question. Thank you very much, Steve. Greatly appreciate it. Steve says in a half PPR, start 2, Debo, Ayuk, Waddle. Out of those 3 options, I'll take Waddle and Ayuk. Lost Watson and Cousins. Was 3 and 4. Now I'm 6. Wow, you're 6 and 4 now. Congratulations. I have Gus the Bus. My opponent has Howell, Kyler, Eckler, Gus Bus opponent, Howell, Eckler. Oh, you don't have Gus at us. Okay. Howell, Eckler, Gus, Kyren Williams, Keaton, CeeDee Lamb. Okay. Olave, Higgins, Ingram. Okay, so maybe that is your team. Because you put Gus, Bus, OP. So now maybe OP is like overpowered, like in a gaming term, instead of OP being your opponent, like op. But either way, moving on. In terms of the roster you have, Howell, Kyler, Eckler, Gus, Kyron Williams, Keaton Mitchell, CeeDee Lamb, Waddle, Ayuk, Debo, Olave. Like, this is just a stud team across the board. There's nothing really to do rest of the season. Yeah, that is a team. It's an absolute unit of a team. So just keep the momentum going there. Rambler Man says, trade K9, Charbonnet, Pickens, and Pitts / Komet for Taylor. Trade K9, Charbonnet, Pickens, and one of those tight ends for Jonathan Taylor. Sure. I'd be perfectly happy trading Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, Pickens, and Pitts for Taylor. Assuming you have enough depth at these other alternative positions, keep Komet, get Taylor. Jonathan sends in a question, says, full PPR, McBride or Kincaid, flex, Pacheco, Ford, or Godwin. Okay, so let's figure this out in terms of McBride or Kincaid. Who would I have ranked higher in a full PPR? In a full PPR, I have Kincaid ahead of McBride. As for your follow-up question, I mean, they're both great plays. Honestly, if this is the same league, I would play Kincaid and McBride both, one at tight end and one at flex, Jonathan. If it's two different leagues, and the flex question for your other flex question is for a completely separate league, in that circumstance, assuming it's a full PPR, I'd probably end up leaning towards Godwin there. Thank you. Chris Allin says, I lost Mark Andrews. What could I trade for? Hawkinson, Laporta. Wow, that's going to be tough. Derrick Henry, Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Kyron. Nope, never mind. It's not going to be as tough anymore. You got some studs. CeeDee Lamb. Okay, so in this current circumstance, depending on what that team needs, like at this point, you should very easily be able to trade a 1-for-1 to try to get a Hawkinson. Like, I don't think that would be completely out of the realm of possibility. To where you could trade like hey, I'm giving you Derrick Henry, you give me Hawkinson, or I'm giving you one of these other stud running backs, you give me Hawkinson straight up. Like, you could very easily get away with that, considering you have Henry, Kamara, McCaffrey, Williams, and Aaron Jones. So you can easily get away with that. Tried that. If that doesn't work, you could also throw in like hey, I'll give you Aaron Jones and Nico Collins, and you just give me, like you could really overpay for it. But considering the depth you have on your roster, technically you're eligible to do so, and it won't hurt you that much. Western Conference sends in a question. Thank you, Western Conference. I appreciate it. Says, trade Diggs for Gibbs, Puka, and Jackson Smith in a half PPR. Kind of have to. At that point, that kind of a trade, I would be willing to make it. A 3-for-1 of that capacity, especially if it helps in terms of your depth going forward, I'm fine with that. Gio Ortiz says, which two? Swift, Achane, Pollard. I'd probably play Swift and Achane there this week. Ross Roberts says, 10-team full PPR, one quarterback. I'm 8-2 currently. I have Allen and Lamar. I have JT, Kamara, Hall, Achane, White. Wow. Diggs, Allen, Amon-Ra. Okay, there's not really... Are you going to ask if you should make any improvements? Should I trade Kamara for Kelsey? Should you trade Kamara for Kelsey? Rest of season, full PPR. Considering you have McBride as your tight end and your alternative running back options are JT, Hall, Achane, and White. That's a really good question. Yeah, I'd be willing to do it. That's fine by me. I don't think you have to, but I'm 100% willing to do it. That's fine by me. I think that just solidifies to where you don't even have to worry about tight end anymore. So really, you won't have to worry about any positions for the remainder of the season. That's fine by me. Thank you. Moving on, we had a question that came in from Colin Smith. Thank you, Colin. It says, full PPR, got offered Devonta Smith and Rashee Rice for Jamar Chase. Thoughts? If you need the wide receiver depth, I'm okay with it. I do think that going forward, if I compare Devonta Smith's potential to Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith is going to have himself really solid weeks in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 outings, mainly because of the absence of Dallas Goedert. Once we get to the fantasy playoffs, it'll probably get a little bit more even in that scenario. And that way I'll probably lean towards Chase. But for right now, if you're bringing in Rice can potentially help you. I don't mind it. Die92 says, in a 10-team league, I have Eckler, Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, and Jake Ferguson. I'm starting. Great. Good to go. Should I flex Rashee Rice, Nico Collins, or Devin Singletary? 10-team league. Assuming it's a full PPR, I'd probably go with Nico Collins there. If it's a half PPR, I'd probably lean towards Devin Singletary. That's kind of the thought process I have at the moment. Benjamin Holler says, would you consider starting Kyler over Josh Allen? Would I consider it against Houston? I would consider it, but would I ever? I don't think I would ever do it though. Yeah, I don't think I would ever do it. Fixie in the chat says, where's the Hidden Gems video for week 11? Sorry, I just dropped my camera lens cover. Where's the Hidden Gems video for week 11? Like I mentioned earlier on in the stream, yesterday's video that was posted was rest of season rankings and tiers for all 4 primary positions. No Hidden Gems this week, no Hidden Gems next week. Hidden Gems will return in week 12. Sorry, week 13 for the Bipocalypse. So yeah, for this week, no Hidden Gems. We did rest of season rankings video. Next week, on Friday, I'll probably just do a live stream, primarily because it's kind of like a holiday weekend, and I may not be home as much to get everything kind of prepared for video. So I'll probably just live stream Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'll have 4 straight days of streams. Yeah, that's what I'll probably do. So for right now, that's the reason there's no Hidden Gems video this week. Thank you. Moving on. Jonathan sends in a question again. It says, trade Kincaid or McBride for more DK, Ayuk, or Puka. If you have both, okay, so trade one of these 2 options to try to get, yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind the idea of trading one of these, especially, I don't mind the idea of trading like a McBride or a Kincaid to try to get a DK Metcalf. I think that's fine by me. Especially with DK Metcalf's late season schedule, it is going to be an absolute feast for him and those receivers of the Seahawks. Moving on. Just Too Lazy says, full PPR, Ty Chandler or Rashee Rice? In a full PPR scoring format, assuming the weather is manageable in Kansas City, I'll take Rashee Rice there. Mainly because there is a potential in which Alexander Mattison plays tomorrow. If Alexander Mattison is not active tomorrow, at that point, you could just play Chandler and you'll be fine. Sun AAA says, start one in the flex, Jalen Warren, Calvin Ridley, or Chris Godwin. In a half PPR, I'd probably play Jalen Warren. In a full PPR, I would consider playing Chris Godwin, but I'm pretty sure I don't have Chris Godwin ahead of Warren in a full PPR. Let me just confirm this. Warren is there, and Godwin, never mind, Godwin is ahead of him in a full PPR. Apologies. So half PPR, Jalen Warren, full PPR, Chris Godwin. Thank you for your question, son. Appreciate it. Alrighty, we're almost caught up on all these super chat questions. I appreciate you guys being patient. Hopefully, I was able to answer your question via proxy of somebody else's. If I wasn't able to, of course, there's still 55 minutes left in the live stream. I'll try to get to your questions as soon as I possibly can. We had a couple more super chats sent in. One from Jerry Gonzalez says, trade Achane, Stevenson, and Nico Collins for Thielen and Hall. Achane, Stevenson, and Nico Collins for Thielen and Hall. No, I would much rather have Achane, Stevenson, and Nico Collins rest of season. Moving on to your follow, it's a full PPR. Is it better than Chase and Stevenson for? No, I don't. I think the previous question, Jerry, that you suggested of getting Pollard and DJ Moore is actually better. Moving on, iShine 101 says the following. It says half PPR. I need 2 for a so 2 for the flex spots. We have Sutton, Noah. Okay, Noah Brown's not playing this week. Sutton, Hunt, AJ Dillon, Njoku, or Quentin Johnston. Sutton has to play. 7 touchdowns in the last 9 games? Unbelievably well. He's been playing. He's had a touchdown in each of the last 4 games he's played. Sutton is an automatic play there. No questions asked. As for the other option, I'm very much so considering just playing Kareem Hunt there. Speaking of scoring consecutive touchdowns, this guy scored a touchdown in each of the last 5 games. If they get down into the red zone, that is the guy who's going to carry it in for them. So Hunt and Sutton would be my suggestion there, Aishan. This is a league in which I have Burrow. My quarterback has 11 points so far. Yeah, that's rough, man. That's rough. Very unfortunate for a season-ending injury. Robbie P says, pick 2, Singletary, Pollard, Walker, Achane, full PPR. Out of those potential options, I'm probably going Singletary and Pollard there. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. Majarkus sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, 10-team full PPR. I started Burrow and Andrews. Okay, that's rough. And I'm 5-5. I need to start advice, help for the lineup. McCaffrey, Achane, Lamb, Sun God, Puka, Vikings defense, Cleveland kicker. I have Dell and Hall on the bench suggestions. So if you are already starting McCaffrey and Achane, and you're already starting Lamb in the Sun God, and you're already starting Puka Nacua, which I would suggest playing Dell over Puka. That'd be the only difference there. Yeah, that'd be the only difference there. I wouldn't suggest any other moves this week there. Majarkis, thank you. Moving on to C. Banger. Says, during the Bills game, I traded Josh Allen for Herbert and Murray. Okay. Then traded Herbert and Pacheco for Stafford, Taylor, and Kmet. Now my starters are Lamar, Murray, Taylor, Bijan, Waddle, Puka, Debo, Kmet. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all. I'm fine with that. That works for me. Considering you have Lamar and Allen to begin this entire experiment, that works. Flotation Swag says, I posted something on Twitter. Let me know. Okay, cool. Let's check this out. Let's go to Twitter. Let's go to notifications. Okay, let's see here. So, you have to start Tommy DeVito this week, huh? Yeah, that's going to be rough. Especially with, let's see here. I mean, at least, dude, wait, how are you still projected to lose? Who are you playing against? Yeah, you're playing against the God Squad. Wow, okay. But hey, you got some great performances out of this, out of OBJ, Gus Edwards, and the Ravens defense. So, hey, great. My only thing is, why aren't you playing Achane? That's my only question. Achane should be starting in your flex over Charbonnet this week. So if in fact you're like, if you're need to where you need to drop someone in order to, yeah, if you, okay, so here's my suggestion here. Wow. If you need to drop someone in order to ensure that you can put them into your lineup, I'm either dropping Mac Jones or I'm just straight up dropping Charbonnet. That's it. That's the way to go. You have to play Achane over Charbs. There's no way. You just got to. Let's see here. So that would be my only suggestion there. Thank you, Flotation. Appreciate it. Moving on, we had a question that came from Justin. It says, Chase in exchange for Amon-Ra or Adams. Chase in exchange. I would rather have Amon-Ra over Chase rest of season. I would say that Chase and Adams are relatively identical in terms of value going forward, so you would just be a matter of preference there. But yeah, Amon-Ra is much preferred over Chase, excuse me. Chris T says full PPR, Saquon, Henry, or Achane. Also in the flex, D-Hop, Hollywood, Dell, or play an RB that is left out. Okay, so in a full PPR scoring format, out of the available players that you mentioned, if I can only start, so let's just put it this way. If I can start a running back out of this group, it would probably be Achane. The second player would be Saquon. The third player would be Henry, kind of in that order. Actually, you know what? Maybe Saquon's actually last because a couple of his offensive linemen are out another week here. Maybe it's like Achane, Henry, Saquon in that order, and then Dell in that flex spot that you were mentioning between Hopkins, Hollywood, and Dell. Dell would be the player there. Thank you. Alrighty, we've caught up somewhat. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Let's answer some of these live chat questions, shall we? Austin M says, do I start Ayuk, DJ Moore, or Christian Kirk in a full PPR? Out of those three receiving options, it's kind of hard for me not to suggest playing a Christian Kirk in that current capacity. He's just too damn good in a full PPR. Guillermo says Herbert, Charbonnet, or Dowdle as bye week fill-in. Under the assumption that Dowdle's injury is actually going to limit him or keep him out, the suggestion would be to play Herbert. Jay McLaughlin says, do I, hey Andrew, start Hunt or Chandler in a standard? If in fact we're in a position to where, if we're in a position to where Alexander Madison does not play, I would play Chandler there. David Morgan says, hey Andrew, man, 4-6 in the playoffs right now. Start 2 in the flex. You're in the playoffs right now, or you're currently set to make the playoffs. Either way, doesn't matter. PPR, Lockett, Rice, Sutton, or Thielen. I mean, I don't even know if Lockett's going to play. If he does play, I'd probably prefer him over okay, never mind. David Morgan okay, there it is. Lockett, Rice, Sutton, Thielen. Assuming Lockett plays, I'd probably roll with him. Otherwise, it's Sutton and Thielen. which might end up just being the play in general, just in case. Also, I have Hunt and Henderson. Yeah, I mean, you're good to go there. Hunt, if it's a Hunt or Henderson question, it'd probably just be playing Kareem Hunt. But yeah, for now, probably Sutton and Thielen, considering the status of Lockett is very uncertain. Robbie P says, with Noah out, should I start Waddle or Tank Dell? I'd still play Waddle there. I think Waddle's he's a damn good play. Tony says, chat only, Kincaid or Schultz? All right, chat, what do we think? Bruce Cowdery sends in a question, says, choose one full PPR, Jaden Reed, Michael Wilson, Rondell Moore, or Robert Woods. Out of those 4 options, I would play Jaden Reed there this week. Bruce, thank you. Let's see here. We had Diggity Dog says, do I start Darrell Henderson, James Cook, or Evan Ingram in the flex? I'd play James Cook there. FRS says, full PPR. Would you flex Amari Cooper or Dalton Schultz? I'd play Dalton Schultz there. Guillermo, we took care of that. Chris Moreau says, okay, he's talking to somebody else. Never mind. Pablo says, please grade my trade. I got Devontae Adams and Khalil Herbert. Jets defense for Josh Dobbs, Gabe Davis, Jalen Warren. I would need more context to what your team looks like because if you got Devontae Adams, Khalil Herbert, and Jets defense, okay, let's just put it this way. I think Khalil Herbert is a running back by committee guy going forward. Not very much so a startable per week option. Not every week are we going to feel confident starting him. So that's already bad. In comparison to Warren, who at this point, I am 100% comfortable starting him every single week. You get Adams. Maybe you have another quarterback besides Josh Dobbs. Maybe Gabe Davis is your 5th best, wide receiver. And maybe this whole trade is just to get Devontae Adams. Sure, but not knowing context, I do like the other side more, to be honest. McBride or Godwin full PPR? I honestly do not mind playing McBride there. I do not mind it at all. Dell or DK? Ryan, I'd play Dell there. With Lockett out, you know what? I'll probably adjust my rankings. With Lockett out and Noah Brown out, I think there's more of an upside of... There's probably more upside with DK Metcalf, potentially. But for right now, I'd still lean towards Dell because that's where I had it ranked earlier. But it could change by tomorrow morning. We'll see. I might overthink my way into a different scenario. We'll see what happens. We had a question that was from OK in the chat. It says, chat, should I trade Marquise Hollywood Brown, Mondre, and Dak Prescott for Devontae Adams? 3 for 1, huh? I have Hurts. I don't really start Mondre. Basically swap Marquise for Adams. I feel like you should be able to get more. If you're going to send 3 players of that caliber just for 1 player, I feel like you should be able to get more. Just my, that's my opinion. Moving on. CJ says, greetings and salutations, Andrew. Full PPR. Murray or Dobbs? I'll take Dobbs this week. Eric says, flex Puka, Collins, or Pacheco. Between those 3, it's probably Puka. Yeah, it's probably Puka. Should I trade Mondre for DK in a full PPR? Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Not one bit do I mind that. Ridley or Rice? I'll take Rice there. K Dizzy. Janet says, do you like Angry Birds? I mean, I like Sam Howell. Sam Howell's a great quarterback. He has played so much better than I ever could have imagined. Peter says, hey, Drew, starting Ayuk, Dell, Laporta, and Waddle in the flex. My main RBs are on bye, so I'm starting Warren and Rico Dowdle, but I may need to drop him for Latavius. Addison, Rice, Kincaid on the bench. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, look, if you need to end up swapping Rico Dowdle for Latavius Murray, I do not mind it. And then if you're starting Ayuk, Dell, and Laporta and Waddle, you have Addison, Rice, Kincaid on the bench. Yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You're good to go there, Peter. Thank you. Tommy D in the chat says, Andrew, thinking ahead, I have the Browns and the Jets defense currently. Would you drop one/both for Chiefs or Eagles? Would that cover me up in week 17? That's it. Okay, hold up. That requires I do a little bit of research here because I don't even know what weeks. Okay, hold on, wait. Give me a moment. Let me cook. Hold up. All right, let's look here. Rest of season schedule. Okay, so specifically for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have Philly this week, then they have Vegas, Green Bay, Buffalo, and then their fantasy playoff schedule is New England into Las Vegas into Cincinnati. Yes, Kansas City's fantasy playoff schedule is ridiculous for their defense. assuming they're not already rostered on your team. Maybe there's a potential that they're not considering they're coming off of the bye. Follow up, you were mentioning that you have the Browns defense. They play against Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. Sorry, that's not true. That's the Bengals matchups. They play against Chicago, Houston, and the New York Jets. Still prefer the Kansas City schedule there. And then you said something about the Jets defense. They have Miami, Washington, Cleveland. Yeah, Kansas City's defense is probably a good pickup for now. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. And then you were mentioning Philadelphia's defense in their matchup. Seattle, New York Giants, Arizona. Yeah, again, Kansas City's defense. That just, we'll take that. Jennifer Anderson says, pick one. Henderson, Noah Brown, Gabe Davis. If I'm not mistaken, Noah Brown is out. I'm almost 100% certain that's the case. Let me just, because I know many of you guys have asked that already. I want to confirm that I'm not crazy. So from one day ago, there was a report, and it says here, it says Noah Brown officially out week 11. So fairly certain he's not going to play. Now, let me confirm, because that might be a conflicting report. Let me, just in case, let's look up Noah Brown here. It says he's questionable on other platforms. Why does it say he's questionable? Yeah, okay, so this is the thing. Like, when I look at Yahoo Fantasy, it says he's questionable. But then you look at the first report from Friday, 11:33 a.m., from Roto World. It says Noah Brown knee will not play week 11. Aaron Wilson's of the KPR C2's reports Noah Brown will not play week 11. So yeah, that's the expectation. He doesn't play. He didn't practice all week. So with that in mind, Jennifer, Henderson or Gabe Davis, I would probably just play Henderson there. I think Gabe Davis is like I'm going to either get you 2 points or I'm going to get you 22 points. If you're willing to take the risk, let's go for it. But I think the safer play is probably Henderson there. All right, let's see here. Nate says, sit one in a full PPR. H-Head, Jacobs, Pollard, or Breece Hall. I don't want to sit any of those guys, Nate. Who do I have ranked? Yeah, let me see here. Earlier this week, who did I have ranked the highest out of the bunch? I had Hall, Jacobs, and I've moved H-N below Pollard in this circumstance. So for now, it would be pretty much waiting on H-N a week, playing the other three options technically. All right, moving on. We had a question that came in from. You know what? Now that I saw that, this Kansas. Okay, moving on. Let's close a couple of these tabs. We're good to go. FF sends in a question. Thank you very much, FF. I appreciate it. Standard League, I'm in first place, 8-2. I'm a Mark Andrews manager. I picked up Freiermuth. I got offered Cole Kmet for Thielen. Nope, don't want that. My other wide receivers are Diggs, Keenan Allen, Lockett, Quentin Johnston, Jacoby Myers, and Jaden Reed. Counter for McBride. Yeah, let's counter for McBride if we're going to make a move like that. That's fine. Francisco Rivera says, hey, Andrew. Cortland Sutton or Dalton Schultz again this week? Probably Cortland Sutton at this point. Taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see here. Zach Mokamba says, one flex, full PPR, Ty Chandler, McBride, Rice, Singletary. I'd probably go with McBride there. Bruce Cowdrey says, full PPR, start either Kirk or McLaurin. In a full PPR, I'd rather play Kirk. I think they're both great plays, though. Thank you, Wally. Thank you. Appreciate that. Kendon says, any waivers to pick up because JJ is gone in a 10-man league? Any waivers to pick up because of JJ? I wouldn't expect KJ Osborne or Brandon Powell to do much today or tomorrow, in that game. So not really suggesting anything of that capacity. But if in fact, it depends what's available in your league. If you want to take a flyer on if the Kansas City defense is available, I feel like based on what we've talked about in the last 10 minutes, it's not a bad idea. Seabass says, do you think I should start Puka Nacua, DJ Moore, or Tank Dell as a wide receiver 2 slot? Seabass, I would suggest playing Tank Dell. That's what I would play. Andrew Muzar says, is it worth to start and play McBride on flex over Javonte Williams or Tank Dell? No, I wouldn't. I'd rather have both those guys over McBride this week. John Wilkers says, "Hi Andrew. In the standard PPR league, I have Pollard, I have DeAndre Swift, I have McLaurin, I have Mostert, I have Debo Samuel. I need 2 at the flex and 1 at the RB. The RB is going to have to be Swift. The flex options, in my mind, in terms of suggestion, would be Pollard and McLaurin. Laporta or Barkley full PPR? That's a really good question. I probably play Barkley there, though. Do you value DK or Adams full PPR? DK. Eric says Gabe Davis or Calvin Ridley this week, PPR. I'd probably just play Gabe Davis at that point. Jay McLaughlin says best tight end replacement in a standard for Mark Andrews. Freiermuth, Jonnu, Musgrave, Mayer, Otten, or Parham. If we're talking about this week or rest of season, I would assume that rest of season, the best. I would even say this week and rest of season, it's either Jonnu Smith or Musgrave. That's probably the best of the bunch for now. Jabin says, "Hey Andrew, PPR league. I lost Mark Andrews this week. I traded Ridley and Hubbard for Roshan Johnson and McBride. Okay, great. That's a great trade. I'll take that. I don't love Roshan, but I like the idea of getting McBride in that scenario. That's fine by me." ECKZ says, "Sit 1 PPR Hall, Swift, Dell, Achan." I'd probably sit Achan there, to be honest. I've actually moved Achan down a pretty considerable amount since Tuesday's video, mainly because he didn't get a single full practice in this week. I still think he's going to be great, but in comparison to some of these other running backs, I've kind of toned down my my overhypeness. Is Christian Watson worth a start? No. I'd rather play Jaden Reed over him. On the same team, just more opportunity, more touchdowns, more production. It's not like, look, here's the thing. When I watch back the games for the Green Bay Packers, it's not like Christian Watson doesn't get opportunities to score touchdowns or have the ability to make big plays. He does get those opportunities, right? He either drops them, it's good coverage, it's a terrible pass. Everything that could go against him that possibly could force him to not play well just happens. So it is an unfortunate scenario, but yeah, for now I would probably just not say it's worth playing him, considering there's nothing that really commits me towards feeling comfortable playing him anyway. Horns fan says, "Was offered Jamar Chase for Bijan Robinson full PPR. I declined. Right choice? Yes. Keep Bijan. You do not want Jamar Chase with a backup quarterback going forward in comparison to him. Laporta or McBride full PPR? Laporta." Hey Andrew, thank you. I won 2 what does it say? Hey Andrew, thanks to you, I won 2 championships in a row. I'm currently 7-3. Thank you, Francisco. Appreciate it. Let's try to make it 3-peat, man. Let's try to make it like the old Laker days where we go for 3-peats. Howell, Fields, or Murray? Kendon, I would probably say let's go with Kyler in that scenario. Hi Doggy says, AJ Brown and Kittle for Kelsey and Devonta Smith the rest of the season. I'd rather have AJ Brown and Kittle, to be honest. Let's see here. Fantasy Bros. That's a good name, actually. Like Fantasy Pros with Fantasy Bros. That's actually a really good name. Full PPR. Running back, Hall or Barkley. I'd rather have Hall. Wide receiver, DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill. Okay. Sorry, it's not or. It's Hall and Barkley, DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill. McBride is your tight end. Flex is Montgomery, Thielen, or Marquise Brown. Understood the question now. I'd probably play Thielen there in the flex. With the play calling going back in the direction of Frank Reich, we're going to get back to seeing a lot more productive weeks from Adam Thielen, I would assume. Okay, so now that we've been here for about, I would say, an hour and a half plus, I wanted to go ahead, travel on over to Underdog Fantasy and put together a couple pick'em slips alongside of you guys. Yesterday, at the end of the video in which I talked about my rest of season rankings, again, at the end of the video, I had a 5-leg slip that I put in. Literally, I'm not even joking. I think like probably an hour or two after I posted the video, I saw a comment that said, "Hey, Andrew, 2 of the plays that you made are not even there anymore." And I was like, what? And I go check, and literally, Austin Eckler anytime touchdown and CeeDee Lamb's target number were both gone. Like as soon as I put it in, they know, all right, we got to take it off because it's going to hit. I'm not even joking. It legitimately happened. But maybe it's not the reason why they did it. Maybe it's just, they saw too many bets go in on that overall play and they're like, okay, there's something going on. We don't have the right number available. But nonetheless, Want to put in a couple plays. If you guys have any play suggestions for me, please hit me up with it. That would be greatly appreciated. But one of the favorite plays that I have that is still available that I made yesterday was Terry McLaurin. Did I just lag? Dude, my computer just almost spazzed out by just opening a website. Goodness. One of the better plays that I do prefer from yesterday was Terry McLaurin going over 60 yards. I'm assuming that they moved that number up. I'll check it again, but yeah. A couple more questions that were sent in. We had one from Smooth Criminal. Smooth, hope you're doing well. Long time no see. It says, rank them rest of season. Adams, DK, Pittman, Garrett Wilson. You know what's great, Smooth? I literally posted a video on it. Which video is that? Well, it's my rest of season rankings video that was posted yesterday. As of the players that you mentioned, who I have ranked highest, well, I have it set as DK, Pittman, Adams, Garrett Wilson in that order. Now, I did make a caveat suggestion that, yes, I have Garrett Wilson at his current position under the assumption that there is no return of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers does return and comes back like week 15 through 17, I would then probably be like, you know what, Garrett Wilson's probably a better option than Davante Adams going forward. But yeah, DK and Pittman are the 1-2 there for sure. But yeah, check out the video if you guys haven't yet already. It also includes rest of season strength of schedule for all 4 primary positions. Greatly appreciated. Click the like button there. Click the like button down below. Thank you. Okay. Let's travel on over to Underdog Fantasy. Let's see what kind of plays we can put together, shall we? Alrighty. So, let me check. Did they mess with McLaurin's line? They moved it up by 1 yard. Dude, guys, I'm telling you, this is it. This is a play that I'll, just like last week where I was so bullish on Gabe Davis, 38.5 receiving yards. This is the one that I'm bullish on because I know it's going to hit. So this is the one that I'll probably put in with everything. He always plays well against the New York Giants. On top of it, Adoree Jackson, their primary number 1 cornerback, is out this week. The last time out, a couple weeks ago, 9 targets, 6 catches, 90 receiving yards against his defense. Has never had less than 10 fantasy points against the New York Giants in his entire fantasy career. Averaging 15 fantasy points per game against the New York Giants in his career. Just putting it out there. Nonetheless. If you have any other suggestive plays, let me know. I'm going to answer a couple more questions here that I saw. Ford or Singletary, Andrew Scott. I probably, under the assumption that Dameon Pierce doesn't play tomorrow, I'd probably go Singletary there. Otherwise, you can go the alternative direction. James, that is very kind of you, sending in that super chat. Thank you very much. Very much so kind of you, James. Let me see. There wasn't a message attached, but maybe I can go ahead and find it. Let me check here, James. F3, James. James says, last question. Sorry, not last question. Question, last wide receiver spot. Keenan Allen with an AC joint injury. He did fully practice yesterday, so we're very confident with that. Nico Collins or Deebo Samuel. Love the channel. Yeah, if we're only playing one of the 3, I'd really, really prefer to play Keenan Allen. Fully practiced yesterday. I'm expecting him to be perfectly fine. Obviously, he did return in that game due to the injury, but yes, I do prefer that at this current moment in time. If you have any other questions, James, just type it in the chat and I'll get to you. Thank you. Squeezy Sponge says, full PPR, look to trade one of JT, Henry, Achane, or Gibbs. If I'm going to trade one of those 4, Squeezy, it's going to be Henry. Wide receivers are Puka, Chase, and Olave. Do I bundle Chase and a running back and try to get a better receiver? Yeah, that works for me. If you can move Chase and Henry and get a top tier, I mean, I'm talking about top 3, 4 wide receiver, let's do it. Is this the Drew jinx in motion? I need listen. Okay, hold up, Robert. Monday was a fluke, okay? What happened on Monday night has to be a fluke. Just because I had 2 plays in which I suggested, what did I suggest? I think I suggested Joe Burrow and I suggested Mark Andrews. Yes, they may have gotten both season-ending injuries, but it's not on me. I promise I'm not the curse. Now, technically, I did only put plays on those 2 guys, and they definitely bit me in the ass, but I'm fairly certain this is not the curse. I'm telling you, last weekend, it was the Gabe Davis play, and it hit big for me. The last couple weeks, I'm up a disgusting amount, but thanks to Gabe Davis, it definitely panned out well. But no, Robert, it's a funny statement, but no, I'm not the curse, I promise. Greetings, Andrew. Flex Waddle, Pacheco, Kirk, or Ford. Yeah, Tano Martin. I'd play Waddle there for sure. Yeah, Waddle's got to be the play. Hey, Andrew. I don't know if you've seen my comment yet, but pick 2 running backs, Jacobs, Hall, and Achane. Or should I start all 3 and bench Debo? I would bench Debo and start all 3. Eric says Higgins or Ridley rest of season. Higgins or Ridley rest of season. Oh God. Yeah, I don't know if I like either, to be honest. I'd have to think about that for a while. I don't know if I can give you an answer off the top of my head. Dolphins or Jaguars this week? Dolphins or Jaguars defense this week? Jaguars versus Tennessee. Dolphins versus Las Vegas. Who do I have ranked higher? I think I have both of them ranked. Let me just check who I have ranked higher at the moment. If I go to my rankings, scroll over to defense. As of right now, I have the Jaguars at 6 and Miami at 7. They're literally back to back in my rankings. And they'll probably stay as such going forward. So I'll take Jacksonville right now. Appreciate it. It's the spinning wheel curse. This week was the Bengals spot on. Yeah, I guess. I mean, hey, listen, the spinning. Hold up. Which spinning wheel curse are we talking about? Okay. Robbie says, "How are you, Anju? 5-9-1, 12-team league. I have Burrow, Diggs, Lamb, Higgins, Swift, Mostert, Kittle. Okay. Any suggestions? Yeah, you need to get a new quarterback because Burrow's out for the rest of the season, Robbie. So definitely try to make a play for a quarterback, whether it's a waiver wire guy or potentially moving one of your stud options to get a, like, you have 2 good tight ends. Maybe you can move one of those tight ends for a solid quarterback option there. Garrett Wilson or Adams, a wide receiver this week. I'm fairly certain I have Adams ranked higher, mainly because I expect him to have a higher potential for a touchdown this week. Brandon Cooks or Ridley in the flex? I'd rather play Brandon Cooks. This is a crazy question, but Hurts or Downs? Yeah, it has to be Hurts. It has to be. K9, Javonte, and Cup for Eckler. K9, Javonte, and Cup for Eckler? No. Absolutely not. Too much. You've given away too much there. Lions or Jets? As in defense, Franklin? Let me check who I have ranked higher. I have Detroit Lions at 9. I have the Jets at 11. So if you're playing the Lions against your own wide receiver, I guess it could hurt, but I don't mind it. Play both Gibby and Monty over Ford? Yes. I would play both Gibby and Monty over Ford. I definitely would. Ron says, is it bad to mislead friends that ask fantasy questions in the same league? I do it all the time. I do it all the time. So I would say it's not. Here's the thing, right? If I'm playing with someone in a league, right, and they're my homie, okay, there is an unspoken rule to where if you're gonna ask me of all people for fantasy advice, I lead them astray every time. If they're like, hey, would you do this and drop this? Yeah, let's do it. Sounds great. That's exactly what I always miss all the time. But that's the homies, right? That's because I'm competing with them. If I wasn't competing with them, like they have the channel, they can go find the channel. It's not a problem, you know. They know where to look for the advice. I always gotta have an upper hand on them though. Okay, moving on. Giovanna Thomas says James Cook, not Dalvin Cook. James Cook for Drake London full PPR. I'd wait a week maybe. Let's see what James Cook's able to do with this new offensive coordinator. Apollo X Light says full PPR. I'm deciding between starting Rachaad White or Montgomery and Mike Evans or Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, that's pretty tough. In a full PPR, considering if Rachaad White catches the ball a bunch, like he's going to be of, you know, excellent value. But for right now, I would probably venture to say Montgomery's probably the better play, and Evans is probably also the better play there. So Montgomery and Evans are my immediate suggestion. But yeah, I could understand the idea of playing White, but he's got to catch a bunch of passes in order to be able to be just as, you know, valuable. We had a question that came in from Todd. Todd, thank you very much. Says, hey Andrew, I'm in a rough spot this week. Flex Foreman, Dowdle, or Osborne. Or can you think of any sneaky flex plays? Depends what's available in your league. If any sneaky flex plays come to my mind, I'll suggest it. But for right now, if it's like a half PPR league, I'd probably go Foreman. If it's a full PPR, I'd probably go Osborne. Would you play Kincaid over one of the Minnesota backs? Yeah, I would play him over both Minnesota backs. Okay, so besides McLaurin here, let's see. What's another solid play that I could go with that isn't going to kill me this week? Let's see. What do we have here? Oh, it's back. Look at that. Anytime touchdown. You know what? While we're at it, real quick, let's just make that submit. Boom. All right, cool. Then we're going back to McLaurin. This time around, give me this. And then I'll keep scrolling. What else do we have here? Keenan Allen. Yeah, these are pretty solid numbers. I think 10 targets. Can he surpass it? He could surpass it, but if they blow him out, like, it's going to be tough. Let's see here. Aaron Jones, what's his reception total at? 3.5. I think that's a very achievable number as well. 4 receptions, but AJ Dillon's always a receiving back, so I got to just be careful with that overall. Jaden Reed over 33.5 receiving yards. Why does that seem so low? Jaden Reed. Why is 33.5 seem like it's... As of late, he's at 84, 19, 83, 21, 7, 50. Okay, so that's why. Because he's about a 50-50 guy. But they play against the Chargers this week. The 1 week against the LA Rams in which they won 20-3, obviously they didn't throw the ball, so he only had 19 receiving yards. The week in which they lost 17-9 against the Denver Broncos, which of course, again, in that game, they ran the ball a bunch. He only had 21 receiving yards. They'll be losing this game, and they'll be throwing the ball. I think that's a very easily surpassable number in this circumstance. So I'll take over, or I'll take the higher on that for Jaden Reed. Let me see what else we have here. What else can we find? I think the number for... What is Achane currently at? 45.5 rushing yards. That's got to be a joke, right? I'll take that one as well. Thank you very much. All right, let's see here. Is there anything else? Okay. Jose says, has he been misleading us the whole time? Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing. Yep. Imagine. Jose, I don't compete against you in a league. If I did, though, hey, listen, brother, don't ask me for advice. Sergio says, start Reed, Sutton, or Madison. And also Godwin or Brian Robinson. I'd rather play Sutton over the group there, Sergio, and I'd rather play Brian Robinson over Godwin. Richard sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, Richard. I greatly appreciate it. It says, full PPR. I got Bijan on the bye. Najee, Ford, Pacheco. Who do I start? I would suggest playing Najee, Harris, and Pacheco there this week. Thank you. Who should I trade Jamar for, or should I hold? Oh, that's a great question. So, for those of you guys who are wondering who you should trade Jamar Chase for, potentially, I have the perfect solution for that scenario. As of right now, there was a video. It's called Rest of Season Rankings. It's on the channel. I have my Rest of Season Rankings at all primary positions, which includes Jamar Chase, where he's ranked in the absence of Joe Burrow in comparison to other wide receivers. So potentially, if you can trade him for one of the wide receivers that are higher than him, potentially around him in that area, I think that would be a great overall deal. Check out the video. It's on the channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. Be sure to click the like button. I gotta do some self-advertising, right? It's always in the mix. Let's see here. AGZ says, Andrew, you like Herbert or Kyler? I like Herbert this week. And pick 2 between Gibbs, Monty, Swift, and Rashad. Probably be Gibbs and Swift. Higgins trade options, that one's tougher. I think the number 2 receiving option of that offense is a little bit more difficult to predict. That's why I'm not 100% jumping on the idea of suggesting plays in that regard. Let me scroll down here. What is he at? 64.5. That's not bad, especially in games in which he's been healthy, but this could be a blowout, so we'll see what happens. For now, I'll just leave this here. I'm gonna marinate a little bit here. Let's see what we can put together. I already had McBride in a play yesterday, going higher than 56.5 receiving yards. I think that'll probably already hit. So I'm not too worried about scooping him into another play here. Where's Tank Dell's numbers at? Still at 7.5 targets. That one. I mean, what are we doing, guys? What else do we have here? Derrick Henry getting over 12.05 fantasy points. There's no way he can't, right? Huh. How much receiving work has Derrick Henry had as of late? One reception, 3, 4, 2. This is probably what I'll end up doing in this circumstance. Let's scroll a little bit here. Let's see what else we have. All right, let's go back to the chat. Let's see what's going on here. We had a question that came in from Ty. Ty says, Ford, Pacheco, Singletary, or Foreman PPR? Out of the group there, I'd probably take Pacheco first, Singletary second, Ford third, and Foreman fourth, assuming that Dameon Pierce doesn't play. If Dameon Pierce plays, Ford would be ahead of Pacheco. Ford would be ahead of Singletary, all behind Pacheco. As for your follow-up question, also Hollywood, Laporta, or Rashee Rice in a full PPR. Hollywood, Laporta, or Rashee Rice in a full PPR. I'd probably lean towards playing Hollywood there. Yeah, probably Hollywood. Thank you. Do you believe Tyreek is matchup proof? Yes, he has to be. I mean, there's literally... Here's the thing, right? There are some circumstances in which he doesn't have incredibly high upside games, but that typically has to do with the fact that the offense just doesn't look in his direction enough. Like last time out against the Chiefs, right? Let me see here. How many targets did he have? Tyreek. He had 10 targets, 8 catches, 62. The only difference is he just didn't have a touchdown. Otherwise, that's a pretty solid week for fantasy purposes. At full PPR, that's 14 points already. He puts in a touchdown, boom. But yeah, he's absolutely matchup proof. I mean, anybody that's in that top 5 wide receiver conversation are always matchup proof. I don't care who's lining up against him, unless Darrelle Revis is coming out of retirement and he's back to being his 27-year-old age. I would be perfectly fine starting all these guys. All right, let's see here. What else we have? Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard. I think I'm gonna risk it, guys. I'm the one that's always on the Tony Pollard hype train. I think this is the week. And then we'll go ahead and we'll take this number. Is this a crazy stretch? No, I don't think it's a crazy stretch. Give me higher on that. What else? What else are we getting here? What other solid plays can we get away with here? I think with Antonio Gibson probably out, I think that's probably likely. I think this is probably likely. What else we have here? Christian McCaffrey, anytime rushing touchdown against Tampa Bay, who hasn't allowed a single rushing touchdown since week 5. They're messing with me. The last time I went in and put in this play, he caught a receiving touchdown that game. I'm not gonna get scooped on this. If Tyler Lockett doesn't play, fire up JSN over Garrett Wilson. Already have DK. No, I'd probably still play Garrett Wilson over JSN, and that's in that capacity. Godwin, Reed, or JSN this week? Assuming that Lockett's out, I'll take JSN out of the group. Otherwise, it's probably Godwin. Robert P says, thanks for all the happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Robert. Greatly appreciate it. We took care of Ty's question. Okay, yeah. I'm just going to put together a couple more pick'em slips here, guys, and then I'm going to head out, and then I'll be back tomorrow morning. Let's see. What did Ayuk's numbers at? 4.5 receptions. I think that's going to probably be higher on yardage. Scroll down a bit here. What else we got? 9 targets for DK, huh? That's interesting. Not a bad number. Very, very enticing, but I don't know. Wow, look at Cup's 12.0 targets. Oh my God. That is, that one's, speaking of interesting, my goodness. Speaking of targets, let's take that one. All right, that's fine. We're taking the risk for the biscuit kind of play here. I actually don't mind those. Those are not bad at all. Okay, let's go ahead and let's transition back to the full screen, and then we'll take care of a couple things here and close out today's live stream. I do appreciate y'all coming through. I do appreciate everyone who has clicked the like button. Appreciate those of you who have voted via the overall. I think we've had, what, 569 votes, but only 172 likes. It is what it is. I do appreciate, though. All right, guys. So, a couple more things to remind you of. First and foremost, okay? I did put together a couple pick'em slips via Underdog Fantasy. Again, do not forget that at this current moment of time, if you're using code Andrew, when you click on the link down below in the description and you make that first time deposit minimum of $10, not only do you get the first time deposit match, you get my rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, all that kind of jazz. So if you're interested, take advantage of the opportunity, take advantage of the first time deposit match, potentially follow, fade all of my overall plays. But the pick'ems game, it makes, the potential games every single week that much more exciting, and that's why I participate in it. It's pretty fun. I don't put too much cheddar on it. It's like $10 here, $5 here, nothing crazy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going and making $40. Actually, I have done it in the past where I put $100 on Cup and Jake Elliott, but that did hit, so that's a different conversation. Anyway, moving on. Anthony sends in a question. Says Hunt, Chandler, or pick up Tyjae Spears-Henderson. I would rather play Hunt and Chandler, assuming Madison is out. If Madison is not out, then you would be Hunt and Henderson. Thank you. George Cook says, chat, do I trade Ayuk and Kincaid for Olave? Do I trade Ayuk and Kincaid for Olave? I have Hawkinson, can pick up Musgrave off the waivers. I feel like you should be able to get more for Ayuk and Kincaid, to be honest. Yeah, I feel like you should be able to get more. What should I do with Monty? PPR? Please help. Start him. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, man. He's a good player. Carrie says, Jefferson for Ayuk and Breece. You get Jefferson for Ayuk and Breece Hall. So you're sending away Ayuk and Breece for Jefferson. Carrie, my only question in terms of context would be, what does the roster look like overall? How many teams are in this league? What's the scoring format? That's a lot of context that I need. But like in a bubble, I'm thinking to myself, if I have enough running back and wide receiver depth, sure, I'd love the huge upgrade at wide receiver once, in fact, Jefferson's healthy next week and going forward. But context does, definitely play a huge role there. Brian Robinson or Ramondre Stevenson rest of season? Again, great question. I had a rest of season rankings video posted yesterday. Check it out. I have Brian Robinson slightly ahead of him, but yeah, you can go and figure out just to the context of how much higher I had him on the video. Check it out. Thank you. I tried to get more. The Olave manager was only one willing to. Damn, that's tough. That's the thing, Cook. I don't know if. I guess you technically could make it considering your team is capable, but like, do I really want to overpay for Olave? I don't know. It's tough. That's a tough deal to make. That is definitely a tough deal to make. Husky Dad says trade Olave and Ford for Barkley and Flowers. I don't know if I want to trade for Olave though. I don't know if I want to trade for Barkley though. That's my only hesitation there. FF Lady says Gibbs and Kincaid for Diggs. Ooh, okay. I don't know about. Okay. Let's just put it out there, right? Kincaid, when Dawson Knox returns, it will be a lesser option. That is a given, right? So it's just a matter of if Diggs goes back to being 20 points a week, and let's say Gibbs is floating around that 10 to 15 point range, technically, it could be an even trade, assuming you have depth outside of Diggs and Kincaid to fill in for those two primary positions. If you don't, probably too sketchy of a move. Otherwise, if you have enough depth to be able to fill in for those positions, specifically tight end, which I think would be the biggest concern, yeah, let's roll with it. Okay, let's see. Armand says George, Ayuk, or Olave. George, Ayuk, and Olave are the same guy. I mean, which George? George Pickens? Because I wouldn't say that. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say that. Wouldn't Ty Chandler perform better against Denver than Montgomery against Detroit? The only thing about Ty Chandler that specifically worries me is Madison fully practicing on Friday. That's why I haven't completely confirmed, like, yeah, that's who I'm playing. That's the only thing that kind of worries me. Adrian says, am I too optimistic to think Mike Evans continues to play well? No, I think he continues to play well. So I wouldn't even worry about it. Terry Fiji says, half PPR, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Eckler, Barkley, White, Singletary, Wilson, Godwin, Deontay, Schultz. Okay, starting TJ, Dak, or Goff. Okay, so Dak has to play over Goff. 2 wide receivers are probably Wilson and Godwin. I mean, that's really all you got there, right? Deontay's not going to play. As for your 2 running backs, it's Eckler and Barkley. As for your flex, it's Rashad White there, Terry. Hi, Andrew. Half PPR, Kareem Hunt or Alexander Madison if he plays? If Alexander Madison plays, I would play him over Kareem Hunt this week. Jonathan Santiago says Sutton, Singletary, Nico. Assuming it's, let's say it's a full PPR, I'd play Sutton and Nico. If it's a half, I'd consider doing the same again. Comp Player says, would you trade A.T. Perry and a 2nd round pick next year for Gus Edwards, full PPR dynasty? If you're in a win now position, yes. Jet says, I already accepted, but just want to hear your reaction. I traded Javonte Williams and Noah Brown for Josh Jacobs and Cooper Kupp. How? How did you do that? That doesn't make any sense, man. Jet, how? You want to hear my reaction? My reaction is, what is going on in that league? If I was, I'm just putting it out there. If I was the commissioner in that league, I wouldn't let that trade happen. I would legitimately believe that there's collusionary effect going on because Noah Brown's not even playing this week. So I don't know what you did to silver tongues, figure that out. But sheesh. That's, whew. Yeah, wow. All right, guys. It's 2:55. I've been here for how many hours? Let's see here. My stream has been going for, can I see the time on this thing? We've been going for 2 hours and 2 minutes. We've been here for about 2 hours. I do greatly appreciate you guys. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll have rankings on screen without a doubt. These rankings will be top 36 running backs, wide receivers, top 16 tight ends and quarterbacks, along with top 12 kickers and defenses, right? So if you guys are interested in terms of getting your questions answered at a future capacity, tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, be sure to swing on by to get your questions answered. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'll be back tomorrow morning. That's all from me. Much love. Great. Thank you for clicking the like button. Thank you for those of you guys who have participated in the chat, answered questions in the chat, sent in super chats, signed up via, code Andrew via Underdog Fantasy, purchased the merchandise via AndrewKirchhoffShop.com. Greatly appreciate all the support you guys have sent me. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to cue the music of the double helix, the intro, and until, actually, wait. Before I do that, I got to go ahead and I need to change the thumbnail. Okay, boom. Change that. Boom. Okay, there it is. Now I need to do this, and I need to, wait, here it is. Boom. And I don't even know why I did that. I had this already here. All right, guys. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate y'all. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back. Until next time, I'll see you guys.